joined by Hope and Aurora, and if you guys want to introduce yourselves, feel free, and we'll just get started.
My name's Hope. I'm Aurora, and we were in Love Has Won. So before we get started today and give you guys a background of our story and who we are, we wanted to start with a disclaimer about everything we're about to share. So,
oh yes. Our disclaimer is just that everything we share is from our own personal experience, right? And also things that were shared directly to us from Mom. And we always say take what resonates and leave the rest. We're not here to convince people. We're not here to recruit to our movement. You take whatever resonates with you, and that's totally cool. For a lot of you might have had awareness from us from the documentary, and so we meet a lot of people in person, and they ask us obviously about the doc, and we just say, Hope and I were with Love Is One with Mom for 3 years. We also filmed for that documentary for 3 years. So you saw 3 hours of 6 years in totality of all of that. And so there's a lot of context left out, and that's where we kind of hope to fill in the gaps today.
yeah, and then there's always more than what you see in the media. The media has its own perspective on things, and there's definitely been a limited perspective of our group and Mom and why we came together and what her story is. So we just want to try to give you a bigger perspective while we're here. So, he provided a lot of laughter over the years mixed with chaos. But yeah, no, we don't get it.
So do you, to my understanding, again, I'm basing this off the documentary, which, have many of you seen that documentary?
Yeah, Jason eating pizza, yeah.
So I guess one thing is he was kind of put in the role of Father God, and was that role something that he brought on himself, or was that something that Amy put on to him? And do you agree with that?
It was more, his story of what happened when he was outside. He's like, "This is my house," or whatever he said, is biblically accurate in terms of that's what he did, and I feel he did bring it upon himself. Less her being like, "This is you." I think he chose that for himself. I think he wanted that because he does, as you can see, have a God complex. And that's not how she was at all. The way he behaved really, taints who she was as a person. And, for us, in terms of, I feel like she said many times, and this is something that is not in the documentary, but she told us before she left this earth that he was not Father God. And she was like, don't tell, basically the group until it was time. And so we told people after. Basically it was a choice point. Some people chose to still believe what he says and follow his every word. Most of us chose that, we're not going to resonate with that and side with that. And, for us, me personally, the main reason I knew he wasn't holding that energy was obviously a lot of the treatment of her. He could be very nasty and mean, but also after she left, he denies this, but we know it's true, is that he chose to go back on hard drugs. And she had a policy in the house, which was no hard drugs. The only thing that she said was we were allowed, or we could smoke weed. She's like, everything else is just, it's not good for the body. I don't want to be around that. It affects, energetics, and we did have somebody else that did go back onto hard drugs, and he did have to leave. So I knew when I heard that he went back onto drugs after she left, I was like, he's not, choosing to be a good person, so he's not going to embody that.
Yeah, and actually one more thing, kind of on that same line of thought, did she prepare, did you guys feel prepared for her leaving? Did she prepare you guys, or was that, for that moment?
No, but I don't think she could. I feel, a lot of the reason this is in the documentary where they talk about us talking about starships are going to pick her up and all these things, and people wondered, did we think that was actually going to happen? And the answer was no. We knew that she was going to pass away in the natural way that you do as a human. It wasn't going to be these starships coming and beaming her up, and we knew that. And I feel that that was a way to kind of skirt around people wanting for us to take her to a hospital. You know, right at the end of her life, she basically moved house right before an ambulance. Her mom had called an ambulance, and she had left right before. Like, she was determined to never go to a hospital type thing. So I feel like she knew what was coming, and she kind of, you know, prepared us in a way. And I feel like towards the end for us, I just knew, you know what I mean, that this was how it's gonna be. And I feel she couldn't give us any direction because she had to let everybody choose their own path. The souls of us that have stayed together and are still friends, she had to let us, you know, kind of form those friendships and stick it out. The people like Jason or Miguel that took all the money, you know, that they were gonna choose their own individual paths, and we weren't gonna be stuck together where she was like, okay, when I go, everybody still has to be together. Like, she wasn't that kind of way, so it was more like, I've taught enough, everyone's on their own path.
So see though, where a lot of parts of Lauren, right, weren't real. They were like pieces of masks of me. But me as my human self and all the human parts of me that are totally real and valid, like that is still totally who I am. Like I would say I'm probably the very similar person to who I was before joining Love Is One. I just think I have a lot more wisdom, I have a lot more, I think, experience, and I know myself. I know who I am. And Aurora to me is an essence that I'm like gifted to just be the holder of. And so I would say, yeah, on both of those things. And I feel very whole in all of those parts, like very much kind of like soul and body, just feeling coherent in that way.
Do you kind of feel the same?
I feel like it's definitely both. I mean, I still go by Ashley, that will never change. You know, that's a part of me. I'd like to see it as like who I was before and after what we experienced with Love Is One, and I'm open to being called either name. I feel like just my life has been an evolution. I've continued to grow. I'm grateful to have the name Hope, and that's something that connects me to Mom and the experiences we had and the friendship we built. But, you know, I just feel like my life has just been an evolution, and the name kind of defines a moment where, you know, I evolutionized on a different level, but I'm cool with either one. I love both names. I feel like both tell a story that make me who I am, you know, if that makes sense. And even our HBO producer said this, and she never put it in the documentary, which is again just the skewedness of it. I remember she texted us and she just said, you know, oh my God, guys, her liver was fine. And I looked into it recently. There was no liver damage, and so
Unremarkable.
yeah. So there was, you know, I put it in. Unfortunately, this is all I had was putting it into AI. I don't have like a relationship with my AI where I was just like, you know, would this person have died from an alcohol overdose, basically? And it was like, no, it doesn't say that in the, you know, the autopsy. This would not be somebody that would die of alcoholism, or, you know, it's like if someone was drinking heavily in the last 2 to 3 years of their life, like, would it say this? And it's like, no, you know, it's not. You know, that's not the cause of death in this autopsy. So we've had more questions than answers with it, but from what we've experienced, she was definitely special, and it was definitely a unique situation where I have never seen anybody in my life drink that much and, you know, be coherent and then have no liver damage on their autopsy. That is just very bizarre for me.
All right, any other questions?
One of the big subjects in the documentary was the use of colloidal silver. And there was the big debate as to whether or not this was helping her or not. Have your opinions on the healing properties of colloidal silver been changed throughout the years?
To be honest, no, and it's not like, you know, we're going chugging colloidal after this, but it is like just a kind of healing modality that's really, and it's funny because in Europe, they sell colloidal at every store. It's a well-documented, commonly used, natural healing modality. I mean, you could go to any, like, and if you are sick in Europe, they will immediately give you colloidal silver. That's their go-to antibacterial, antiviral kind of things. So yeah, we didn't change
on it. I think a lot of people were like, oh, well, that's why she's blue. And I'm like, okay, like maybe, but also it was probably like lack of circulation. She couldn't walk. You know, there was just so many issues, right, that were going on with her physically due to like all the energy and stuff. So yeah, we kind of just use it as like, oh, if I feel like I'm getting real cold or something, you know, take some Kaleido. It's also a really good idea with a cut. You know, just basic stuff like that. Yeah, so we feel the same way about it. You know, we're not kind of like turned off from it all. But yeah, I think that was like, again, that became like the whole dog. And we're kind of like, okay, we get it. Like that's a really small piece of it though. Like it just became like the whole thing is about colloidal silver and vodka.
Alright, and you can go ahead.
Yeah,